This evening, I'm going to share with you railroads of Warren County, which is the county I currently live in. You'll see Indianola there. That's a map of the county. It's a fairly current state railroad map, but what it does is this is an interactive map from the state DOT that shows you all current railroads, all abandoned railroads, and etc. And so it's showing the black line is the current railroad. The red lines are either all abandoned railroads or you see Interstate I-35 there on the left side, which would be the west side of the county map. This presentation came about because earlier this year at the local railroad club in Indianola, it was mentioned that next year's county celebration, what do they call it? I haven't lived there long enough to know that, but they decided the theme was going to be the railroads of Warren County. And the club was approached to see, hey, could you guys put together some sort of a presentation? And I said, yo, PowerPoint, no problem. I can do something like that. We'll do that without any trouble whatsoever. And so I took it upon myself to put together this PowerPoint. I was actually at the club this afternoon. There was one photo there in the Historical Society that I had not got a copy of yet. So we were working on getting a copy of that and put in here. I do want to mention a couple people. Louise Pilmer was a friend of my mother's. She and the Historical Society did a book titled Depots of Warren County, published in '83, published by the local Historical Society. So it's not something you're going to find at Amazon or something. Jim Patrick, his father was a depot agent for the CB&Q. Jim worked for the CB&Q a little while. I knew him because he was my Sunday school teacher in the 10th grade and went on to become a local pastor. But he, in the early 60s, went around and took photos of depots in southern Iowa. So Ron Sims was a railroad photographer who liked railroads and living in Des Moines area. And he started taking pictures in the 50s and 60s. And his son is now posting those photos online. Ron is now in a care center. His body's failing. But his son says we're having a great time bonding as he tells me about each photo while I'm scanning and posting. So, and then Dick Tinder is another rail fan photographer who is a Rock Island fan. And Dick lived here in Indianola for many years. He was my high school teacher for math and science. So the vast majority of the photos I'm going to share with you come from these four people. But getting back to the county, this is from a county atlas in 1930. And you can see that we had essentially 4 different railroads functioning in the county under various names as they were built. The yellow line clear here on the west side is Chicago Great Western. This blue line coming down was originally built as a narrow gauge railroad, crossed the county line, circled around, came back into the county and went on down. And this was later acquired by the CB&Q, but was originally the Des Moines, Osceola, and Southern, and it was narrow gauge. The purple lines here are CB&Q. This one coming up from just west of Sheraton at a place called Sheraton Junction, coming up into the county in the south side. And then this was their main line coming up from a Tumwa area up through Knoxville into Des Moines along the Des Moines River Valley. And part of this line was taken out when Red Rock Reservoir was put in the 60s by the Corps of Engineers. The green lines were Rock Island traffic. They first built coming down out of Des Moines into Indianola. And then the next year, that line was extended clear over to Winterset, the next county seat. And you can see that was, the 2 different names there. We'll get to it. And then the third line here, Rock, this was the one that was built in 1913 that we know today as the short line or the spine line going down to Kansas City. So that'll give you a little bit of the orientation of the different areas. So let's move on here. There was a proposal to build an interurban into Indianola. And apparently in 1905, it was discussed at a city council meeting and 4 different companies made presentations. It was never built I think they did grade a little bit of right of way, but not much. And to just back up here, the Des Moines City Airport, or Des Moines Airport, sits right up in this area. And they were talking about coming down, extending the city trolley system down past the airport and coming down through about here with the interurban line. But like I said, nothing more than a little right of way up in this area that I'm aware of ever came out about that. So, but someone came up, found a stylized photo and decided they'll use that with their story. So,
Yeah.
so let's look at first the Chicago Great Western. They built in 1888, and here are the three major logos that they used. But they came down through Aurelia, Cummings, Lida, Churchville, Martinsdale, Conger. Here is the depot at Aurelia. At one time, this was right on the county line practically. I've learned that they had a coal mine up in this area, which was part of the, you can see where the Great Western came through. The stylized maps are from Louise Hilmer's book. It shows where the depot was and where the store was. Today, there's a really nice chicken restaurant there at Aurelia that we've eaten at a few times. And this is a hike bike path. And the chicken place is about where the store was. And so you can ride your bike there and park in their parking lot and eat chicken. Here's a photo of the store and post office at Aurelia. It basically was an unofficial stop on the railroad with some stock pens and a depot. Didn't become a town until some time later. The next town down on the Great Western was a town called Cummings. Again, these are small towns in Iowa, pretty much wood framed buildings, depots, and grain elevator and stockyards were pretty much the standard fare that you see there. Cummings is probably was put on the map when the Pope came to Iowa in 1979, and the Cummings Church was the what church he visited before he went up to can't think of the name of the town where they did a big service. But they shut down Interstate 80 to park buses on so that people could come see and hear the Pope. Now, if any of you are familiar with Interstate 80, if you can imagine shutting that down completely, park buses. So, but anyway, Cummings, our state senator at the time, his roots were from this community. So, and he was instrumental in getting some of that arranged. Here's another photo of the depot, apparently with a school group that probably was going to take a train ride up to Des Moines and back. Mm-hmm. Now, notice that the slogan here is spelled without the S on the end. So the name was spelled two different ways, but it is Cummings. And I know that because that's my mother's last name. So Lida was the next town down. I do not have a depot photo, but Jim Ruber, who's a long retired depot agent dispatcher for the Great Western, has the ticket dater stamp from that Lida depot. And so he sent me a picture of the stamp. Wow. It was also the town I found a reference that it was sometimes known as Loretto, which may be some of the Italian heritage of those who settled there. But that's just a little bitty spot, nothing there that I'm aware of today. The next town down is Churchville. A lot of people think that they attribute the name to the big Catholic church that was there in the school, but actually the property was owned by a fellow named Michael Churchman, who had his house became known as the Churchville Hotel because it was a stage stop on the stage road. Then when the railroad came through, they took that name Churchville. And here's a photo that I got from Jim Reber of the depot at Churchville and a train rolling through there. This is Martinsdale. As you can see, there were three railroads in Martinsdale. The Great Western came down on the far west side. This was the wood trestle that crossed. This is State Highway 92. And this was the wood trestle that went across this. I can remember driving under this numerous times as a kid and a teenager growing up in the county. Ron Sims photo from 73. Back here towards where all the freight cars are, that is now where the high school has their football field. And this trestle's been long gone. The embankments are gone. At one time, the highway went underneath here, and also the Rock Island Railroad went underneath here. So, but this is a wonderful shot from Ron of the Great Western train crossing the trestle. So, south of Martinsdale was Conger. Here's a shot with the section crew ready to go out on their car. And you can see again, stockyards, depot, don't even see a grain elevator there.
Hmm.
And here's another photo of the Conger Depot. Typical small Great Western rectangular building with a little bit of a bump out for the agent's window. You've got this time of train signal, and they always had a power pole nearby with a small transformer with the lines coming in to provide electric power. So, which that was it for the Chicago Great Western in Warren County. Didn't have a huge presence. So we come to the CB&Q, the Burlington route. We'll look at the tracks on the west side, which was the narrow gauge. In 1881, built a narrow gauge called the Des Moines, Osceola, and Southern. It was in 86, it was taken over by the Kansas City, Des Moines, and St. Paul. And then the CB&Q took it over in 1896. I think they funded some of this building, but they standard gauged it when they took over in 1896. And the towns along this route are Norwalk, Prohl, Martinsdale, Wick, St. Mary's, Truro, and New Virginia. Truro is not in the county, it's just across the county line. And there's another town, St. Charles. I don't have that on the list. I need to update this. And then over on the southeast corner of the county was coming up through Lacona, Milo, Ackworth, and Indianola. And then the northeast corner, following the Des Moines River, went through Clarkson, Ford, and Swan. And Clarkson and Ford, I think both those towns are gone underneath the reservoir that was built there, and Swan is barely surviving. So let's look at narrow gauge. This is the town of Norwalk. Is now one of the fastest growing communities in Iowa, because it's on the edge of Des Moines and very near the airport. But I don't know. I don't think these are narrow gauge tracks. I think these are standard gauge tracks. They look too wide. You can see basically a depot, some coal sheds here, and a small grain elevator or feed mill back up in there, and probably a lumberyard based on the other things sitting around. So you can see it kind of wound through town a little bit. Norwalk's got a little bit of a hilly area, and the depot, lumberyard, and stockyards. So that gives you an idea what was there. Here's another shot of the Norwalk Depot. This was lettered with the fellow in the white shirt as being an Ed P. Brown. It looks like he's wearing a tie, so most likely he was the agent here at Norwalk. And you see they got the freight platform out here with a few things sitting on there, and the hand cart. So, and I'm not sure whether this is a building or a boxcar back there with that lettering, probably a building of some sort. So coming on down the line, we come to the town of Prohl. M.G. Patrick was the depot agent at Prohl. This is some of his family. His father, this is the father of Jim Patrick, who was my Sunday school teacher. So I got a number of photos from Jim's collection of Prohl and St. Charles and some other communities. But you can see, again, a depot, a store, stock pens, and then they note the church that was there and the flowers in front of the depot. Here's a couple more photos of the Prohl depot. I really like how they've decorated the outhouse here. All the vines. I'm sure that was to keep it cooler in the summertime. So,
Sure. Yeah.
And you can see the structure back off there in the background. Let's see that must be a store or a church. I can't tell. So anyway, this is Prohl. This photo is from 1915. Then we come to Martinsdale. And as I pointed out, Martinsdale had 3 railroads. It was the only town in the county that had 3 railroads go through. Great Western on the west side, CB&Q, the narrow gauge coming down on the east side, and then the Rock Island cutting across town. And at the Diamond with the Rock Island CB&Q, there was a depot built. So, and this is the depot, and the fellow standing here was manager of the lumberyard, which was just up behind the depot. You can see there was also an elevator up there at the time. So originally Martinsdale was called Yagi. Don't know why or where that name came from or why, but doesn't matter. Here's another photo of the Martinsdale Depot, where this is now looking along the Rock Island tracks. We got a Rock Island train sitting here. And then we moved down to a little town called Wick. Here's a photo of the depot. We got the agent, we get Reverend Mrs. Pritchard, and some various other people in the photo. Note that over here it says ME Church, and I've had people ask me, what does ME stand for? And that stands for Methodist Episcopal Church, which is what they were known as until 1939, when they merged with the Methodist Episcopal South. The church split in the 1850s over the issue of slavery and became ME Church North and ME South, and then it merged back together again, and then it became United Methodist in 1968. And now we're splitting again over other things. Anyway, here's another photo of the depot at Wick in 1910. Again, a very small wood frame depot, and look at the crossing sign here. You don't see the ones shaped like that too often. So. Then we come to St. Mary's. St. Mary's was a Catholic town. My mother was a teacher in this school. This was a public school building, Catholic church right up the street. There was a tavern right here where you could go and get sandwiches as a kid until about 6 o'clock, and then no kids allowed after 6, something like that. Half a mile west, the railroad went through town through a low spot, so they called this West St. Mary's. And you can see coal sheds, grain buildings, stockyards, a depot, corn cribs. But this was the depot at St. Mary's. And here's another photo of the depot at St. Mary's. Again, this was built originally for narrow gauge and then standard gauge just before the turn of the century. St. Mary's was even noted that they had run a state fair special there in 1910, required some extra coaches. So to take folks from the county up into the state fair in Des Moines. Pretty bad photo, but it's still a little history there. From St. Mary's, the line turned west, it crossed over into the neighboring county where we have the town of St. Charles. Beautiful photo of the St. Charles depot and the stock pens there. Here's another busy photo of the St. Charles depot. Train rolled in, a lot of people gathered there and stuff waiting to be loaded or unloaded in the baggage cars. And then so Jim Patrick had a lot of photos of St. Charles, so I've got several of them in here. I love the depot hack with the horses. And then over here, we got a building, flyer and fly, something manufactured adhesive and fly paper holders. So that's not a industry that most of us would think of modeling.
No.
Wow.
So, and here's yet another photo of St. Charles, and we got a little bit different building back there now, but the same, looks like same depot hack with the same horses and a kid here in front in his wagon. Had to Photoshop this one and play with it a little bit to get him highlighted, but so. And then this is a photo of St. Charles from probably up on top of the water tank, would be my guess.
Oh,
You can see the depot. I'm moving my mouse too much. Depot over here. We got a lumber yard operation. We got some coal sheds in here, and looks like a small grain elevator or grist mill of some sort with some fencing rolled up to it. And I have another very similar photo that does not show this big white building. It shows something else in that spot as the lumber yard expanded. So again, these are from Jim Patrick, but a little spot in the road, not much there. So we move on into Truro, which is an exit off Interstate 35, best known as a pumping station for the pipelines. But again, it was narrow gauge at one time. Again, I think this is standard gauge track. I don't think that's narrow gauge, even though the photo caption said narrow gauge days. So you can see it just rolled through town at a building over here. Here's the Truro Depot again, couple of photos Jim Patrick provided. Good standard CB&Q board and batten construction, small platform, small bay window. It looks like that truck has had a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And an old DX station in the background there. So. Then we come, the line swung back into Warren County, into the town of New Virginia, which is close to my heart because my grandparents, and some great grandparents and some great are buried in the cemetery at New Virginia. as the Harding family had helped homestead and settle some of this area. And here we got the depot. Look at the tarp thrown over here on the ground. So somebody had something covered. That's a nice detail. And this looks like it might be maybe a platform to stick into a car to run the carts up and back. So here's an early photo when it was Des Moines, Osceola, and Southern. But I think this is still standard gauge track. Don't think that's narrow gauge. It could be if those boards are someday I'll have to measure it, but there's a crowd of people there waiting for the train. Now here is the same photo, but a little bit further back and see the horse and wagon is very poor quality from a newspaper copy, but you can, there were people there gathered waiting for the train. Here's another photo of New Virginia. The caption again said rare photo narrow gauge locomotive, but those tracks look too wide to me.
Yeah.
So we'll let the narrow gauge people decide. And here's a much later photo. This one was taken by Jim Patrick, showing the photo, a better photo, but starting to deteriorate. You see, they don't even have a platform. They just got dirt packed down. So that tells you how important this stop was. And here it is, an earlier photo. We got the boxcar platform. We got the mail carrier here, and we got the station baggage car dray wagon of some sort. So, and let's see, they were having a big doings here, special occasion, even called out the school band.
Yeah.
So some dignitary probably coming through town, speaking off the back platform. Could have been one of them politicians we all try to avoid. Then we come to the county line. Just on the other side of the county line was in Osceola County was a depot called Jameson. And here we get the section crew standing there, a nice depot cart on the platform. So, and we have even identified one of the guys in the lineup here of the section crew. So let's, that was the narrow gauge, later standard gauge. Let's now move over to the other side of the county. And we'll start with Clarkson. So this is the main line from Des Moines going down towards Knoxville. Clarkson was the depot there, and you can see they got a little bit of activity. You've got elevator with scales, you got Clayton Omers, you got Omer, you got a depot, house, stockyards, scales, Ped Smith. So they got some houses marked on this map as well. And we got the depot agent, Kurt Omer. Gosh, he lives right across the tracks from the depot. Imagine that. So that's the only photo we got of Clarkson. Again, this is CB&Q, so it's standard board and batten. This is the depot at Ford, Iowa. Grain elevator in the background. Got the depot agent there, and we got the section crew on a hand car. And you may note that we've got a Omaha boxcar. Chicago, Minneapolis, Chicago, Milwaukee, and Minneapolis and Omaha, Chicago Northwestern boxcar with a door that looks like it's got a hanger not hanging too well. So, and I just love the post with the lamp on it.
Yeah.
And this is probably Adams Express Agency sign up above the door. So, but again, a turn of the century photo with some, and you got another boxcar back there for the grain elevator. So they're probably loading grain out, and the milk can there. So, but again, Ford was not much of a town, across the river from Runnels, and it's all underwater now with Red Rock Reservoir. Then we have south of there was Swan. Here we got crowd of people, the passenger train sitting in there with a photo showing a lumber shed and the Swan Elevator Company. And it wasn't a very big town because the cemetery was mighty close to the depot. So here's another shot, a better shot of the Swan Depot. I played with this in Photoshop a little bit to lighten it and bring the details out. But it's and this is a little bit different from the board and batten depot, traditional CB&Q. Here we've got the architecture with the corners coming around, and we've got clapboard siding. And notice how the the freight end has got a door in the end as well as a door on the side of the car. So, or the depot, excuse me. Now we'll go to the south end of the county. This is the line coming up from a place called Indianola Junction on the CB&Q main line. And in the county, crossing the Warren County, and it's the town of Lacona. And we get a lot of crates stacked up here. Of course, the depot cart and these may be chicken crates. That would be my guess, stacked up there waiting for the train to come in. So, and based on where these tracks are in the depot, we are looking at a southbound train. Got some cars over there in the corner and some people waiting. Here's another later shot of the Lacona depot. I think this one was taken by Jim Patrick about 1961 or 62. It's got the more traditional board and batten. I don't know how that other one got in there, but yeah, there's Lacona. Then we come up to Milo, the depot and elevator on the far east side of town. Stockyards, of course. There's a shot with a tree covering part of it. Here's another shot of the depot. This is another shot. Got a CB&Q car, but I love how somebody marked a big M on the photograph so we know where we are. Because that is penciled, that's marked in right with an ink pen right on the photograph.
No.
And so a young lady, maybe the depot agent's daughter or someone standing there for a picture to be taken. So here's yet another shot of the Milo depot. CB&Q really liked using this roofing paper and the tar seams. So you'll see that a lot. And we get a Quonset hut here in the background behind the depot, probably affiliated with the elevator. Ackworth was the next town north. Highway 92 went through there. And just north of Ackworth, the road turned and then went west into Indianola. We have not found a photo of the depot in Ackworth. The agent's house may even be still standing in Ackworth. There were some stock pens. Ackworth is most famous for the Friends Church that still stands there. I can remember as a kid, we drove over the railroad tracks through one of those iron truss highway bridges. It was about 8 feet wide. And that has all been removed, and this has all been filled in on a nice fill and a nice wide highway through there now. But you can still see where the right of way went through underneath there. So,
Doug, what is the PD store?
PD store? That's a good question. That might be the initials of the owner. So again, the maps came from Louise Pilmer's book, and she was a native of Warren County, and so she knew where these people lived. She and my mother knew each other through something called the American Association of University Women or something of that effect.
Oh, yeah, AUW.
Yeah, any of you have been involved with education know that organization. So, yeah, unless someone mistyped, and that should be post office and store, which is possible.
Maybe some kind of department store.
Yeah. So then the next town on the line was Indianola. This is the town I pretty much grew up in, and it had two railroads coming in: the Rock Island from the north and the CB&Q from the south. This was the CB&Q depot. Again, board and batten, got a bay window here. We got a platform at one end. And you can see that the two depots in town were just half a block apart. I'll show you some more maps here a little bit later. Here's another shot of the depot at Indianola. Quonset hut, of course, in the background. This happens to be the backside. We just came across this photo, Ron Sims' photo, just in the last month or two. And this big steel building, this is part of the Laverty Fertilizer Elevator Complex that was sitting north and east of the two depots. This little white building here is Laverty's sprayer office. And right behind it was the Rock Island Depot. So, but
look at that look at that ornate street light.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, yep, they got the little scroll working there, and
That's an oldie.
yeah. So, in 1956, the CB&Q ran a special excursion up into Indianola using their steam engine 637. That was a 460 built in 1892, which is preserved at the Illinois Railroad Museum in Union, Illinois. So you too can go and climb on this locomotive just like the kids are wanting to climb on this locomotive. So, and back here in the corner, this is part of the Honegger's feed mill complex that's at in Indianola. And I got a couple guys who are really looking for some photos for that to get a model built for the train club layout. But, you know, this is some sort of excursion, probably taking the kids, school kids on a ride down to Ackworth and back or something like that. So here is a color photo of the same excursion.
Oh my
In
God.
1956.
Huh.
This is east of the depot. I know the location because of the propane tanks sitting up here. This was one of the oil jobbers in town and the propane. And then this was posted on our the County Historical Society Facebook page, and somebody chimed in and said, "That's our barn." Their name was Turnip Seed. And she recognized the family barn that sat there. This is the engine is on a Y, and they're on the east curve of the Y, heading back down to the CB&Q tracks this way. So the barn would have just sat east of the Y. And then there was a propane tank that was put in the center of the Y. I'll show you that in a little bit. So
In the lower corner, there was a track.
yes, this is the other part of the Y, way down here in the lower left
Yeah.
corner. Yeah. And then there was a track along the fence line back there. So, and I'll show that clearer here in some later photos. This is a 1958 special that the Q ran up here. I think this is an NW2. I'm not positive, but they were serving Honegger's feed, and they have a whole trainload special of cattle feed for a big H feed. Honegger's was based originally in Illinois, but then they expanded after the war, and they bought an old feed mill in Indianola, and they bought a couple others in Iowa and other locations. So, but you can see all the plant employees and all the bigwigs all lined up here to get their picture taken with. And we're trying to get a model built of this facility here. If we can find a good one on the south, this is looking at the north side. We can find a good one on the south side to see what the loading dock looked like. So if anybody has photos of Honegger's, let me know. Here's another shot of Honegger's. This is 1961. This is from Ron Sims. I'm going to back up for a moment and just show, you may look at this important roadway here. This is US Highway 6569 going north and south through Indianola to Des Moines. You can see it's top quality pavement. Today, this is a 4-lane highway with a turning lane. Back then, it barely had dirt and gravel. And again, you can see just the edge of the highway in this photo, but here's a GE 44 tonner that came up from Sheraton to work the line. This is the last year this line was in service. The CB&Q abandoned it at the end of 61. So, but there you can see, there's the caboose. They're using a drover's caboose. The park to the side as they're working the mill here. So, and here's that 44 tonner again. Across the street was Metcalf Oil. They had the Phillips 66 gas station right there on the highway. Again, you can see the highway is just in perfect condition. So, and I lived about a block away from this location growing up. So
what a shot.
Yeah, Ron was a great photographer, Ron Sims. This just beautiful shot here. And here's one coming around on the south side of the Y. You can see the propane tank there, their truck. Here we've got one of the standpipes for unloading tank cars and such. So the guy hanging on the box car, they're shoving it into that feed mill. So, and this is where that propane business was, but you can look at the quality of the tracks in 1961, and there you can see the whole complex for Honegger's. These were bright red stripes on a white tank, so they really stood out. And you can see a lot of other tanks and green stuff in there. And there's a couple boxcars there, and this would have been the Metcalf oil station. So, in later years, a gas station was built on this lot. A Trax station was there in the 60s. So this is okay. This is a much later photo. This is Dick Tinder. Probably in the late 60s. He moved to town about 64 or 65. Notice the tank with the red and white stripes is gone, but we got a sign here for Trax Oil Company. And this is now being worked by the Rock Island. They're coming around the Y because the CB&Q is no longer in town. So, but you can see there's the red and white Honegger's sign over there on that. This was also part of their complex. So here's another photo by Dick Tinder. You can see we got a Rock Island with a yellow nose that's now working these tracks. So let's move to the Rock Island. As I said, they built 3 different times into the county. First was 1871, the Des Moines, Indianola, and Missouri Railroad Company that built from the line coming down out of Des Moines that went to Carlisle. And then it come down to Somerset Junction into Somerset and then Indianola. The UP acquired it in 1980 with their purchase of the Rock Island or the Northwestern in 1980 and UP in 1995. And they abandoned the line in 1998. It is now a hiking and bike path that's, I believe it's all paved. So if you want to bring your bicycle over here and explore this line, you can do that today. The following year in 1872, the Des Moines, Winterset, and Southwestern Railroad, very promising prospects here. They built from Somerset Junction on west through Spring Hill, Lothrop, Martinsdale, Bevington on the county line, and then extended on into Winterset. And this line was abandoned in 1958 because sometime after this was built, the Rock Island built south from their main line west of Des Moines down to Winterset, and they didn't need this line anymore. So then in 1913, what we know today as the spine line was built, leaving from Carlisle down through Hartford Beach and then on into the next county over. So let's look at this. Here we got the Carlisle Depot. This is a photograph or a postcard that somebody has obviously, get off at Carlisle, and you can see it get off here, and then you've got something else penciled in over here. I've seen the same photograph with a nice black triangle hiding this lettering. But we got the baggage cart, we got the depot agent here, a dray cart, and there's a small cart there, and the names, and so then we've got there's a nice wood-sided gondola sitting behind there, and you can see Carlisle. We've got the Rock Island, the McKessick brick and tile business. So we got something besides just a grain elevator. And you can see this map shows with a line going off down Kansas City. And this line followed the Des Moines River a ways. So this is Carlisle. Here's this photo taken in 1983 of the same depot. You can see it's looking pretty sad. It was, I think, torn down not too long after this because it's no longer there. This is Somerset Junction. This is a photo. They have it hanging on a wall in the Historical Society under glass. And I had the hardest time getting a picture of it. We finally took it down and took it outside and put it in shadows so I could not get any glare. Every other photo I had my face in it with it. This was taken this afternoon, by the way, but
Oh my God.
yeah. Anyway, here you can see where the line from Carlisle going to Winterset, and then we had a Y was put in. This is Somerset Junction. This was out in a flat area. The Middle River you can see coursing through here. And the town of Somerset is built up on the top of the river valley up above the river. But you'll see that it was half-mile north of Somerset Rock Island. The Y here was used during old settlers' picnics as a baseball diamond. They would go and play baseball in the afternoon after the picnic down here in the Y. Somerset was here because there was coal here in the riverbed. So we got a coal mine marked here, the Somerset Coal Company here, the coal chute, got Stock Pens Depot Hotel. The Baptist Church still stands. The Methodist Church disappeared back in the 30s. So, and this is Somerset Junction. You can see some boxcars lined up back there on the main line, and it was just basically one of those flag stop type. It wasn't a real depot, just a flag stop and a waiting out of the weather. So I mentioned coal mines. This is the Banner Coal Tipple. This area here with the map is now the Banner Mines State Park. The state finally acquired it in I think the 1980s. As kids growing up, when I was in high school, this was a popular place to go and jump the mounds of slag heaps with your car or pickup truck, take your girlfriend out to go swimming in the pits, all those things. And that's when, and this became a kind of a wild, but this was the coal tipple that stood there based on the car, probably in the 20s and 30s.
That car might be an electric car.
It could very well be electric car. You're right, looking at that. And in the background, there's some sort of an early tractor there, I think, providing power for something, but you can see they got the overhead. This was a shaft mine where they were digging down underneath and a shaft raising up in the loading hoppers. Here is some close-up of the shaft operation. You can see the elevator that would bring up the coal trolley cars, and then they would roll them out. Now this may be narrow gauge from the looks of it, and roll them over and dump them into a waiting hopper. You can see I see a coal conveyor sitting over here and some other junk and wheels and stuff around. So this is the bridge over the Middle River, taken by Ron Sims in 1967. Again, a beautiful, well-exposed shot. Just the detail you can see on here. Here is the same bridge taken in 2020. And you can see it's now the bike hiking path across there. But the bridge still stands here in the Middle River. You can see the embankments aren't too high. This is looking north, and this is all flat ground out here where the coal mine was. And then we start climbing up into the town of Somerset proper. Here is the depot at Somerset. And I want you to notice this difference in the spelling. And I've come across a reference that this was the spelling for the depot, even though the town was spelled differently. The town was S-U-M-M, and this is S-O-M. And apparently it was like this for years. So I don't know why. I'll have to talk to the People Historical Society. But again, we got an express company here, stuff waiting to be loaded in the train. We got some sort of a platform dolly or something there. This is Somerset, probably in the 70s or 80s, based on that old van sitting there. Not much there of a town. So then we, going west from Somerset Junction, we come to the town called Spring Hill. No photo that I'm aware of, but you notice they've got an ME church and they have a PO and a depot. So they have a post office there. They had a water tank and stockyards. This is following the Middle River towards the west. So, and then on west of there was a spot called Lothrop. Again, no photo of the depot exists, but somebody went out there in recent years, found a tree, probably about where the depot used to be, and put this sign up with a map of the town. Notice the station was abandoned. It's one note I found said abandoned in 1908. Another said they were still serving the town up till 1915, but it was probably just a flag stop. Nothing exists at all of this whole area except for this tree and some wag's fancy sign. This town basically disappeared in the 30s. So west of there, we come to Martinsdale. This is another photo I found at the Historical Society today, and I'm beginning to think this might be the Chicago Great Western, and it doesn't look like that rock. There's no depot agent's bay window and no crossing here. So I'm going to have to double check this and see if this may be the Great Western Depot, which means I need to move it to the Great Western stuff. But again, you can see the Rock Island crossing here through town. And I know this area because my mother taught Martinsdale St. Mary's School. And when I was in college, I spent one summer working on building the new high school building. I worked for a construction company pouring concrete. So I helped build the Martinsdale High School building. that she later taught in. So this is a photo taken from the top, from the roof of the new CB&Q Rock Island Depot. And this would be looking north towards, because it goes uphill. And so there was a lumber yard up in here and some grain elevators and stuff, so. And again, here's that same photo with the Rock Island train. On west here, we come to, you can see the county line. Bevington was just on the west side of the county line. And this is where the tracks terminate. Interstate 35 goes just east of here. This is more or less a truck stop today. So. Then let's go back up to Carlisle. Another shot of the Carlisle Depot. Rock Island coming down. This is their main line, the spine line, originally known as the Rock Island Short Line. Chicago Northwestern people call it the spine line. It coming into Hartford. Here's the Hartford Main Street downtown. You can see the town built on the railroad built on the west side, stockyards, elevator, depot, the obligatory cemetery. They must have been hard on depot agents. I don't know. Here's a photo of the Hartford Depot. So you've got some, looks like some boxcars down there in the distance. And obviously this is one that's been copied out of a newspaper somewhere. So south of Hartford, we come to the town of Beach. Most of us in Warren County don't know Beach at all, but we know this very narrow concrete underpass on Highway 92, where if you meet another vehicle, heaven forbid it might be a semi, because this is narrow. But you can see Highway 92 and you can see the tracks, they go right over this. This is now, the siding has now been extended. And I've seen Union Pacific trains sitting up here on this when I've crossed over, but here you see there was an elevator and depot. Here is the depot that the Rock Island built at Beach. We've got the agent and Julius Moore and Olga Moore hanging around. Got some kids there. Looks like some baggage and some cream cans waiting to be picked up. Now, what's really interesting is this next photo is the same building, but it's labeled Sandyville. Sandyville is a town that sits about a mile or so west of Beach on Highway 92. And apparently the workmen were confused and they made up a sign for Sandyville and hung it before they realized that, no, this was not Sandyville, Iowa. But the photo made it into the historical records. So here you see the pump with the well, and we got a box here that I don't know if that's a bread box, a newspaper box, or what it is, but it's sitting outside the depot. But this is kind of a fun little thing to bring to. No railroad ever went through Sandyville. I can verify that. So. Anyway, back to Beach. Here's another photo of the Beach depot. We can see some other necessary buildings in the distance. We got some Quonset huts back here, probably for grain storage or farm implement storage of some sort. Here we've got the mail crane for picking up mail sacks on the fly. So some nice details in some of these photos. And this is in later years, the town of Beach. The depot is probably long gone, but there you can see the north end of the sighting and the nice flat terrain of Iowa that everybody thinks about. Look at that cut. So just across the county line was the town of Pleasantville. I've mentioned Dick a couple times. He now lives in the Pleasantville area. But the Rock Island went through a depot and elevator. And then notice we have a town called the Pleasant Care Center. I'm not sure why Louise put the nursing home on her map, but she must have had some reason for doing that. So at least it's not a cemetery this time.
Right.
So let's come back. We out of Somerset Junction, we come into Indianola. This is a map from 1915. And again, because I grew up in Indianola, I have more of an interest. Here's the Rock Island Depot. This is the CB&Q Depot. I grew up in a house on this corner, right there. This building here is what I will refer to as the broom factory. We'll cover that a little bit later. You got Simpson College over in here. This is where I went to junior high school, and this was the Carnegie Library. What intrigues me with this particular map is I always knew the tracks ending right here. And you see the tracks extending clear over here. There was a roller mill in the 1880s on this property here. This is now all part of the college. And there's a big chapel built right here. But there was a roller mill back in the 1880s. The other interesting, we got a little park marked here on this map. And then right here, I've learned, this is where they parked tank cars with diesel oil. And the city had a pipeline buried in this street that came down a couple blocks past the school building, was where the local power plant was. And they would park tank cars up here. Oops, didn't want to do that. And unload them into the underground pipe to feed the power plant tanks. Which you think of that if you're an operator, all you need is a spot to unload a tank and you get a buried pipe going somewhere else. So, and of course, here you can see that Y. And this would be where that barn sat in that one photo. The stock yards down here on the CB&Q. This was all the oil jobbers along here. And well, I got more maps we'll look at. Here's a stylized map. This was Dick Tinder drew this up in 65, probably about the time he moved to town. Bellwood track, the stockyards used to be, this is now the concrete bulk plant. Bellwood for a long time, Bellwood Concrete. And the CB&Q depot is gone, so these are the tracks serving Honegger's feed. So, and here's some more detailed maps. Here you can see Marathon Oil and Sinclair Oil. So we got two oil jobbers in here, plus we've got a utility racks of some sort for somebody. Let's see, is that, yeah, that's Sinclair. So we got two oil jobbers in there. We have stockyards here. And then we got more oil jobbers along here, a turntable, a couple of boxcar bodies. Let's see, get my orientations right. Fifth Street, let's see, this was the main highway through town, I believe. Let's go to the next map and yeah, here we can see the oil jobs. This is where the stock pens used to be. Phillips been built on the stockyard, but we have Phillips, Continental, Shell, we have White Eagle. I think there has to be a DX in here somewhere because Metcalf later became DX. Here you show a little two-stall engine house at one time, turntable. One of the guys in the club, his house sits right here, and he knows there's still a part of the wall of the turntable pit still exists over in here. So this map's dated 1945. Okay, now here again, stylized map. This is from Rock Island days, Highway 65, 69. So there's that Euclid Avenue. They cross the tracks right here. So let's look at some photos. Here is the first Rock Island Depot in Indianola, 1881. Folks are waiting for the train to arrive, all nicely dressed up. Here is the same depot again. The trains arrived. We got the depot hack here picking up the baggage from the baggage car. This was an important stop because the college was here. A lot of college students rode the Rock Island into Indianola, and the college was 2 blocks away, so they could easily get to their dorms. Here is I think about 1915. This is that little park area. See, it's nicely done. This is the Rock Island Depot. It was a brick and stucco with a clay tile roof. Very nice looking building. Off in the distance, I can just make out the roof of the, this is the broom factory building. And then we got some coal sheds in here. We got cars sitting in here. This was long before Laverty's came in. We got a corner of a building over here. This may be the CB&Q depot because it was right off of here off of Detroit Street. So here's another photo of the depot. Looks like they whitewashed it at some point. This is from 1915. Cars are all dressed up with bunting, so we must have some bigwig dignitary coming into town. And but I love the crossbucks here. Look out for cars. You got a horse and wagon and lots of people. So here's another shot of the depot. This is looking from the northwest corner, looking southeast. You can really see the brick and stucco and then the clay tile. Here's the same, roughly the same photo from the same spot. 65 years later, you can see the scales for the coal dealer. This was their office building, and then the coal sheds were behind there. You can see the little white building for Laverty Sprayers. They started out as a spraying outfit for spraying farms, later expanded into grain and elevator operations. Here's a shot of the depot taken by Ron Simpson, 58. There you can see the oil or the coal dealers building office. Notice the little mailbox hanging here on the post. We got the depot, Laverty Sprayers and fertilizer. There's the broom factory building.
A little camper back there.
Yeah, there's a camper back in there. So some coal sheds that were back behind here. This is the depot. This is 1980. It's taken by Meredith Johnson. This was, here's that Laverty Sprayer building. This was the coal dealer building was over here. This building was owned by the city, was built in that park area and was used by the city park department to store their tractors and mowers and stuff in. It was a garage building. And you can see this is looking pretty decrepit. There was a wood platform in here one time for unloading flat cars. It's been torn out. Here's another shot taken about the same time. You can see the windows and all boarded up. This was owned by the Laverty Elevator Company, and they're the ones that tore it. They used it for storage for a number of years. Then they eventually tore it down. There was a movement to try to preserve it, but it didn't go anywhere. There's now an apartment complex sitting on this exact spot. It's a real shame. And none of these buildings are here at all. All of this is gone. Here's essentially the same. This is 1983, essentially the same shot. So this is an aerial shot of here's that depot. This is, it said taken 1974, but I'm not positive on that. This is where that CB&Q depot sat. This is where Honegger's feed complex was. All these tracks are long gone. This was a lumber yard when I was a kid growing up, and this is the house I grew up in. And that may be my mom's car. I'm not sure. There was a Hy-Vee grocery store here, and they decided to expand. And so they bought the old decrepit lumber yard and the depot, tore them down, expanded their store, and paved all this into a parking lot. So, and here is where the wood platform now is, right behind this boxcar. This was coal sheds all along through here, and they've all disappeared. There was you can see the concrete platform here. This was an elevator building Laverty put up for fertilizer in the early 60s. They jacked it up and moved it out to their new location about 1972. So, and this is their two buildings, and this is their little sprayer office building. And then there were some various Quonset huts, et cetera, in here. The town garbage guy had one of the Quonset hut here's where he kept his garbage trucks, and his grandson was a neighbor of mine, was a kid. I can remember going up there one time with him to see his grandpa and playing in the building with all the garbage trucks and stuff. I bet our mothers loved that.
Yeah. Hey,
So,
Doug, we've got another meeting at 7:30.
oh
so.
gosh, I'm almost done.
Okay, good. Just checking.
This was the blue train that came in. They rehabbed the line. We'll roll through the Dick Tinder photos. Here we go. There's that broom factory building again. They redid the crossing using some thermite welding. This was 3 refrigerator cars that was used by a local feed company for storage along the tracks. Their store was down on the courthouse square. Got some combines being unloaded at the elevator platform. Here's that propane tank getting ready to be rolled into a spot on the concrete pedestals. There it is. It's still there, still being used. This is a new diesel generator for the power plant being offloaded from a drop center flat. And there's the wooden platform in the background and the broom factory. This is all just north of there is the diesel. It's a 16-cylinder Enterprise. Came from Los Angeles area. That's where they make Enterprise engines. Here we are. There you can see that's the building that they actually literally moved. The elevator building was moved off that site. Caboose way back down in there. This was later became a Pontiac dealer's repair shop. So anyway, you just got a series of train action. This was the Pontiac dealer showroom, is now an ice cream store. The propane dealer. Here's a shot they're shoving a car in here to the fertilizer building. There's the depot. Loading a boxcar. There was a company here in town that made campers, and then later they made fiberglass canoes and stuff, but they also made foam panels. So we think they're loading the boxcar with foam panels from the factory. And Laverty even had some of their own covered hoppers. These are former carbon black cars. So if you got one of those 1930s carbon black cars, you can letter it for Laverty Elevator. And of course, the timetable when it went to Interset and the abandonment. And there is MG Patrick and his hand on the telegraph key, and that's the end of it. So I'm done.
Well, sorry to rush you through that, Doug.
Well, I added more photos to this week, and so I wasn't sure how long it would take, but
Sure.
that gives you a feel of what railroads were in my county. And I hope that inspires someone. Bob's got to wake up there. Either that or his camera, his computer's died. But it inspired you to go and research your own backyard and see what was there and what the Historical Society and the Public Library has for photos.
Yeah, that's great. Really nicely done, Doug. Thank you very much.
Thank
Just
you.
a reminder to everybody, we're off next week, so we'll do this again. Let's see, next week be the 6th. So we'll be back in business on the the 13th. Is that right? Have I got my days right?
That sounds right.
Okay, and anybody wants to present, let me know. We'll see you then. And those of you in our meeting at 7:30, we'll see you there momentarily.
Safe
All right,
holiday,
everybody.
everybody.
Yeah, have a safe
All right.
4th of July. Bye-bye.
Good night.